wherever you might be. My name is Sean. I'm delighted to join us for today's ESPC community webinar. Today I'm joined by Katrin Revald, MVP, who will be covering the importance of agent design in Copilot Studio. We love hearing guys have to say, so we're going to join conversation about today's webinar and more on X. Our handle is at ESPC_community and our hashtag is hashtag ESPC26. Tweet us, tag us, and tell us what you learned. Don't forget to check out our Learning Hub, which updates the latest blogs, ebooks, webinars, and how-to videos. You can access and view the Learning Hub by visiting espc.tech and clicking the Learning Hub tab at the top of the page. Join us at ESPC 26 this November in Amsterdam. The newly announced program features 120 plus sessions across 9 expert-led tracks covering Microsoft 365, Copilot, AI, Power Platform, security, governance, agents, and more, including real-world insights from Microsoft experts and MVPs. Super early bird tickets are available until 26th of May. Use code COPILOTWEEK for additional savings and book using the QR code. Early bird pricing ends 15th of May on Friday. Secure your ticket to EPBC 26 and expand your knowledge across Power Apps, Copilot Studio, Copilot, AI, Power Automate, Security, and Dynamics. Use code COPILOTWEEK for additional savings and scan the QR code to book now. As always, if you have any questions at any stage during the webinar, please feel free to type it in the chat box and Katrin will get to them during the session. This webinar will be recorded and added to the Resource Center, where you'll be notified by email when it's available. And now I'm going to hand over to today's presenter. Hello, Katrin. Thanks for joining us today.
Hi, it's great to be here. Thank you. Go ahead and share my screen. So I think it's going to pop up any minute. If not, just tell me. Yeah?
Yeah, perfect.
Good. So today we're going to talk a little bit about why agent design is so important going forward, because there's been a shift from just building an agent and having that agent solving every problem. So I made a session and I'm also doing a full-day workshop at EPBC now coming in 1st of June, no, 30th of June. And I'm going to be in EPBC, so I hope to see some people there and talk about agents. So talking about design and everything, first of all, my name is Catherine and I'm the head of Power Platform and Point Taken. I'm located in Norway and I'm also a business applications MVP. I've been that for like almost a year now. And I am working a lot with both Power Apps and these agents now storming forward. And I've been deep diving into how we can make them best performing and optimized for maintenance, as I can see it's a big problem for myself and my customers going forward. So social links are here. If you want to connect, please feel free to do that. And then I'll go and show you what we're going to talk about today. So we're going to talk about what a multi-agent system is, and we're going to have a look at what it means for you when choosing an architecture and designing your agents, how they're going to collaborate with each other, and going forward, how it's going to work with all of your prompts, instructions, and tools. Then we're going to have a look at what it looks like in Copilot Studio, this agent model. I'm also going to go and say what some agents are, and when not to use them or when to use them. We're going to have a couple of demos at the end, and we are also going to have the importance of instructions mentioned. So first of all, what is a multi-agent system? So when you look at these agents, they are like networks now. We're going from having one agent doing all of it. It's like having one organizational team where you actually have HR systems, you have finance systems, and then all of these different organizational departments, they do one task. They're specialists in that task. And that is also what we see now in these agents. So they collaborate and they try to fix workflows together. Rather than just having one person doing it all, you have now several agents doing a couple of different tasks each. So we have now scoped different agents on different instructions, and they have a very specific way of working. You can also see these mentioned as the Russian doll pattern, which means that they are working in a hierarchy where you have an orchestrating agent, then is putting down some work to delegate it down to the other agents that are mentioned within that agent itself. So now, what is it we're going to look at? Today, I have a scenario where I myself saw that for my customers going forward, the Center of Excellence kit is no longer achieving or getting any more updates, which means that I have to be using a PPAC, Power Platform Admin Center. It is fine, but also I wanted to solve that in a way that I could have more overview, and I wanted to try out this Russian doll pattern on the agents I'm building now. This means that I have an orchestrator, and an orchestrator here means the basic first agent that you're building. That agent is then going to route down a few messages and some tasks. I have broken it down into 3 child agents. I have one that does research, it's a discovery agent, and one for inventory, and one that is for deletion. So it analyzes environments and it checks for orphan flows, agents, and apps. And I do this by checking if the owner is now left the organization or not. It's the same as in the Center of Excellence kit, if you ever use that. For the inventory, I have a table that will be marked with different orphaned elements. It will collect information about the different items and the environment ID and everything you need in order to find and do decisions or make decisions that are necessary for your organization. And then also for deletion, when you have found everything and you are ready to go ahead and do some cleanup, we also have an agent that will go and delete this in the environment mentioned. So all of this that I'm going to show later in the demo is based on a scenario which I'm facing now and an agent that I'm going to use going forward. So going into what this looks like in practice. First of all, in Copilot Studio, you'll have the orchestrator agent, and this will be the independent agent marked in your solution. You'll see it in the inventory usage and everything in your Copilot Studio usage. This can be connected either as a connected agent for external systems or internal systems. You can have connected agents be called by multiple agents, which means that you will have a model and architecture where you are dividing tasks to an agent outside of the orchestrating agent. While when you have a child agent or a sub-agent, also known as an inline child agent, they are made and created within the orchestrator agent. They are nested. That means that not reachable by anyone else than that overall agent. So this means that you also have to make some architectural and design design implications, because this can then make or break your agents going forward. And having this as part of your thought process when you're making the agent will make it simpler for you to choose the best approach. So let's have a look at what they look like in general. Inline and child agents, you have one orchestrator, separate agents that are within the same solution, while as you have the connected agents that can be administered by somebody else and not the main orchestrator, but you can connect to them as if they are like API calls into another system, and they work like that. They are separate from the original solution, which means that an orchestrator here can also have both connected agents, but also child agents. So they work like tools connecting to data sources in a way. So the big question is when to use what and what should I choose? When I started to build my agent now, I saw that I didn't need this agent to have a separate agent to connect to. And that was because I didn't want anyone else to be using my agent. And that is because I was the only developer on this solution. I am also looking at things like, how can I best make it so that the agent knows how to use the different tools? So I started to build these child agents because I saw that I could group the instructions and different agent flows into an agent rather than having it all listed under tools and then be used by one agent. Also, going forward, my main concern when working with Power Apps or Dataverse has been working with choice fields. And I think that a lot of people have been seeing the same thing. But when you're working with choice fields, you are then choosing if you want it to be a local choice field or if you want it to be a global one. This is the same thing. An inline agent would be a local one rather than a connected agent who's a global one, which everyone can use. And I've had problems where the published choice global field would require some changes after a while, which means that if it's connected to different other agents and they wanted a change that was not suitable for me, that would create a problem. So when you see that you don't want anyone else to affect your solution and you want to have complete control, following a hierarchy in which that you are deciding when it's going to be used, because you have to wait for a connected agent to be published also to make use of the new changes in there. But a connected agent would be very preferably if that means that they should be available in other channels as well. If you have a good strategy for your ALM and you have control in which you have a team that is working together and you know that it's not going to be a negative effect having connected agents. And also that if you need to have dedicated settings and you have to have it separately from your agent, it could be like authentication with a user that is not the user in the chat, which means that it could be more beneficial to have a connected agent rather than the same inline agent. So a couple of things to think about when trying to build out these agents going forward. And I see that a lot of benefits coming from using these child agents also is related to the fact that I am able to control it more. And with the connected agents, one of the benefits there is that you actually have, it's like a custom API and a custom connector, which could be reusable. So if you need the reusable agents to be available for your organization, then a connected agent would be more preferable. I saw this and I thought I needed to mention it because I was a little bit surprised in a way where we're always working with solutions, right? Working in Power Platform, having a solution, building out your tables, your agents, and everything that is related to this agent means that it's going to be in this solution. So when I built this out and I saw that some of the child agents, they didn't show up as agents, they were actually showing up as topics. And the same was for the agent flows. So I just wanted to highlight this so that people know when you go and look for your sub-agents, they will be within the scope of the parent agent, which means that you will be having to look into that agent if some of the sub-agents are also failing. So having a very good governance and control over your agents will be very important going forward, also if you choose to have a sub-agent within your agent. I think also that is why you should be very clear on how you use these sub-agents, because if they're very, very important to you that they're working and they're not failing often, they won't be picked up by the overall governance tools. Like today, you can go into inventory in Power Platform Admin Center and you will see all your agents. And what is going to go on now is not, I'm not sure in a way that will you see these agents as separate agents or not. So just be mindful of that and know that this is the case that I have the type topic right now. So that is interesting, but what is more important and what I found is make it or break it part of building out these agents are really related to how you use instructions. So in my agent here, I have instructions showing with about 2069 characters. I would not prefer to have this many instructions or lines of code in my main orchestrator. So this is an example of not using child agents. Then one agent will run through all of this. And the thing is that I just can't believe is happening all the time. It's frustrating. Is the fact that it's running through these instructions every time a user does the prompt or asks questions in chat. It will run through all of these 2069 characters and try to solve what is the user intention now, and then going back to the instructions to find where does it fit. So that means that if you're using one agent, you kind of have to have very, very clear instructions, and then adding the layer of complexity where you have lots of different tasks being performed in one agent alone, you can see where the problem starts to arise. So going forward, I would like to encourage people to try the delegation of tasks to some of the other tools. You can use different tools or the agents and reference them directly in the instructions. And for my little scenario here today, it could be like simple as the overall agent, the orchestrator, will have a document called the discovery agent, and then you pass it, you hand it over to an inventory agent, and then you complete the deletion by handing it over to the remediation agent. And if you're working like this, you can see that it will then change how your agents are flowing and working together, rather than it trying to come up with the right answer from just one block of instructions. So on my right here, you can see the agent where we have 3 child agents, and this is the instructions that it's been given to the orchestrator, where you have one discovery agent, one inventory, and one remediation agent. And I'm basically saying that it will hand off to the different agents when the different triggers are met. And it also gives like a brief introduction to what it is. It's not shown in this picture, but you will see it in the demo as well. So being brief and then removing or reducing the amount of instructions have shown to be more efficient, and it's easier for the LLM to actually decide what kind of tool, what kind of agent are you going to use at what time. So for me, using the slash works really well. You can also click on the plus add on top of where it says edit now on the instructions. If you have it in edit mode, you can then go and add in the tools, and it will then give you the slash, and you're able to pick from a drop-down list, and your connected agents will be visible there. The only thing is that you'll have to have connected agents or your child agents enabled if you want to be able to use them. So a good idea here is to just test it out and make simple instructions, and then try to reference the different elements you need. So another thing that I've seen lately is that when you have a lot of instructions, you have to be very descriptive, and it's more like telling the agent when to use a tool rather than how to use a tool. And then the how and the run itself can be delegated to the sub-agent rather than having it in the instructions. So being clear of how you do that is very important. And I see that a lot of the time I can get the wrong answer if my descriptions are vague and they're more like a feature list. And they also be saying things like you should not. And sometimes you don't need that. You hand it over to the subagent and you'll see it changes dramatically. I have mentioned in these instructions that it's not going to handle anything itself. It's not going to handle the scanning of environments, listing the inventory, or delete anything. This is only handled by the child agents. And when you can go through it all, through the testing, you will be able to see which agent is triggered at what time, which means that it's easy to keep up with and see that is something missing in my instructions. Should something be changed, then I can go back and route to the different agent on the different levels. I'm also going to have a look at how we trigger them from the demo, so we can go in and see what it looks like in practice. So we have been talking for a couple of minutes, and I think that it's time to actually go and see what it looks like in here. Okay. So I have my agent open here now. This is in a solution that I have built beforehand. I've called the solution Power Platform Governance to make it very clear that this is for the governance agent. In here, we have the different components, and you have the agent itself. You can see that it's just one agent, but I know that I have 3 sub-agents here as well. I also have an app because I want to expand this. I want to be using an app to have an interface going forward. And then I also have a table which is open now. This orphaned items table is the inventory list in which all of the orphan items will be stored, and I can go in and have a look at them from both the agent and from the app going forward. So in my agent, talking about instructions, let's have a look. So simplify, this is what it is. You tell it what kind of agent you are. You are gonna have child agents do a fetch of orphan objects, reviews, and then you're gonna delete some of these elements, and always delegate to these child inline agents. For the discovery agent, you can hand it off when the user is using the word scanning or orphan resources. It will also try to find out what the intent of the user is. And we're going to have to try to find out, going through different environments, and then register what kind of orphaned elements do you have across your environments. So this is very, very useful for me because I want to know if we have something that's not working. Maybe the elements here are actually breaking because a flow that has an owner might be turned off. So having that insight is very important. Then I have the inventory agent that is going to be working with the data itself, showing, filtering orphan resources. And then we have the deletion agent. So it's very simple here. I'm just talking about how it's going to use the different options. When I go into edit here, you can now see that the add button that I was talking about is now present. Working with these instructions means that I can go inline here and I can click on add. This will give me some different tools, some topics, and some options to choose from. And that means that if it's not visible for you here, you have to go and check if the tool itself or the agent is enabled, because you can't trigger something that is not enabled. Going into descriptions and what it means for the different sub-agents. Here I have my child agents. They are under the tab called agents. I will have them recognized as a child, and you know that it's living in the overall governance assistant, and it's going to follow the settings that this overall assistant has. So the settings on the orchestrator is then being brought down to the other agents. In the instructions here, you can see that I'm trying to give good descriptions, and that is because descriptions actually matter. So working with this, I recommend you to have a look at the descriptions of your agents, because it's going to help the orchestrator to actually choose what kind of agent do we need at what time. So this makes sense to be a little bit more filling than rather than just having it saying discovery agent. So the name is fine, just try to make the descriptions a little bit more to the point. And at the end here, I'm also just mentioning that it's gonna find a different owner who are disabled in Entra ID. So that's basically what the flow down in the tools section is going to do. So this means that I will give it some good descriptions. In here, from the simple instructions on the orchestrator level, we now go more into depth. So I'll give it a job, a role, and a clear responsibility. It has a very, very specific task, and it knows this because it's going to go and either scan all the environments or a specific one. And it's going to do this in a way that you don't have to set up a topic in order to have it ask a question to the user, because you've set it here. You've triggered this discovery agent, and then it will fulfill these instructions. Remember, as I was saying earlier, that working with the instructions means that every time somebody asks something, it will run through all of the instructions. So go ahead and choose a specific environment or trigger all of them. And here I am again using this / command and mentioning what kind of flow are you going to use. I want to use the scan orphan one, and I'm also going to give a hint to the user. The environment string can look like something like this sort. Sometimes it's nice to mention that the default environment, when you're searching for it, it actually has the default in front of the grid. Usually you would have environment IDs that only has this string. So something to be aware of if you're trying to do a match or a regex or checking different environments and your default environment is not popping up or showing anything, you might have to add this part. Just a side note. So when this is completed, I am then giving it instructions to find and mention what kind of flows, agents, and apps are missing or are failing or are orphaned. And then I am also giving it a brief instruction to say, if you're done or when you're done, go ahead and say to the user that they can have a look at the inventory. And I'm also going to say that it's going to use the different tools, like here for the governance part, scan the orphan flow. Since I have 3 agents, there is also something not connected to instructions per se, but for the details page. You can go into advanced settings for the details for the child agents, and you can set priority. And I have three agents, and then it means that I've set priority for 1, 2, and 3. And the most important one that it does not neglect is the deletion one. So it has a priority 1, and then this one has a 2, and the last one for inventory has a 3. So working with that is also going to change when you are using the different agents. And working with these patterns, you can have agents run at the same time, simultaneously. You can have them run sequentially, when you trigger one agent, and then in the instructions you say that the first agent is dependent, no, the second is dependent on the first, so that they have to run in order. And this can be a problem sometimes when you see that you go ahead and you do a prompt and something in your instructions is telling it to do all of the above. So maybe go ahead and look at the priority of the instructions and details for the agents. And this is then the agent itself and how I would structure the instructions, going from a simple one on the orchestrator down to a heavier one on the agent level that is specific. So if we move on to having a look at the overall how you build these agents, is that for me, I started with the prompt of generative prompt just for a governance assistant, and then I had it come up with some descriptions for me. I then went ahead and I created these agents by going to agents and add an agent. When you are creating it, you can then either go to a connected agent. You will see that you can select it from existing agents if you have anyone in your environment, or you can create a new child agent. When you create a new child agent, it can take a little bit of time because it has to also render it and publish it, and will also be able to do some different changes to all of the instructions, tools, inputs, completion when it's ready to run. I have chosen for my agents that it's going to be based on the agent choosing, so that's the orchestrator, but you can also have when a message is received or something is occurring. So that means that you can have them fully autonomous in a way that they are not being called on or triggered on by a user saying something in chat, but maybe it's related to an event where you have something changing in a table or something. You can also connect them to different topics. So you can say that you will have a topic and then go in and actually call that agent from a topic. In my agents here, I find that using topics is not really necessary at this point. So I've just left topics open to the standard ones. And you can see that here the description is required. So be mindful, create a nice and clean description. And also, when you're done with that, try to write out some very basic descriptions of your agent and how it's going to work. So let's go and see what it looks like for the basic setup that I have shown now with the overview of 3 agents. If I now go and test this, we can now see that in the activity map that will be shown on this side, is triggering a topic, basic topic, because I'm not saying anything else than hi, and hi in Norwegian even, so it's not even English. I want to do a scan. So scan of environments. And let's see if we can then pop up the discovery agent. So here you can see that it's now showing in the activity map that we have a discovery agent being called on. And I am being told I need to enter the environment ID. And that is also because I've shown it in the descriptions that we need to do this. So I'm going to go give it an idea. This is the default environment. We can see what it happens. So it goes and then fetches a string. I will also show this in the agent itself, how I built this, because this is now being passed into the flow, and the flow is then handling the input from the chat as a variable. And this is also why I wanted to give it instructions that were very specific, that the environments could look like this, and the ID could look like this specific. And that will also make it easier for the agent to pass on the news to the flow. So here you can see it did a scan. It has found 15 orphan apps and 1 environment scan. So that is very, very correct. If I go back to my discovery agent, I can also go and see their flow run. It will open up and it takes me over to the agent flows. And just to double check that we have a run here, we can see that it ran 1 minute ago. And then you can also see what the environment ID was that I inputted. So the instructions on the agent flow side would be the input parameter here, which is the environment ID. Okay. I just also want to mention, as a side note, this will require you to have admin rights, global admin rights, in order to do these flows and get apps and list flows as admin. A little bit of a side note there, but it's interesting because it's necessary if you want to get all of your data. So for the different tools here, when you are working with this one, I can say that the input is going to come from the chat itself, from the user. And I want it to understand that by dynamically fill with AI. And this is why it's so important for you to give it very specific instructions, because I am not setting any variables. I'm not passing it through any other flow or anything. So mention it here using the environment idea. And then for the agent itself, this is an example of the string that you're going to work with. Then pre-fill it. That is how I'm working with this. Other things to be aware of is that when you're using an agent flow in a sub-agent, you don't have to have a respond. So you saw that it gave me the output based on the instructions that I have in the agent. I didn't have to have this running as write AI-generated response. And if you do that, you can test it. If you think that is better than having your instructions saying how to respond, you can then say that the sub-agent and this flow is going to prompt the user with a response rather than the instructions. What can happen, though, is that you trigger this, you write a response, and then if you have vague instructions, they will overlap. So you will get 2 responses to your user. So having this write the response with generative AI means that it will always put something in the chat. And then if your instructions also have that, it will do it twice. Okay. And another thing, I'm going deeper and deeper, I can feel it, is that working with these different flows that I'm now calling here, is that I want this to be knowledge for my other agents, which means that I want this setting to be all. Maybe you have a lot of scenarios where you just want to pass it down to just one specific agent, and that is fair. But I want this knowledge coming out of this flow to be relevant and available to all of the agents working on this task. So that is something that I have been trying and testing, and I feel like sometimes I really need to have a specific message sent to just one agent and not being accessible for anyone else. Then test this out. It's gonna be fun to work with going forward, seeing the different ways that the agents are collaborating. I also want to mention that for my organization and for my settings on the agent level, we always have to authenticate the user from their Microsoft account, which means that you are using the end user credentials and they log in and they use it, but you are able to change this also for the flow itself. This is the agent flow if you want to do that. So a little bit of the setup for using flows in your agent as tools. I think it's working rather well, and I'm seeing a lot of change being brought to the agent flows as well. So it's working nicely with the agent because it's built in. And this is also why I'm working with this tool rather than having a separate Power Automate running, which can do the same job, but it's not as interconnected with the agent. Okay. Moving forward, we have now done a scan of the environments. We have then fetched environment details of the default environment. I can go back to my solution and then we can see if we have something here. What I expect to see now is that this table that we have with orphan elements will then be triggered. Excuse me. And it will have some data. What I can see now is that we have some apps, and I have built this table with different columns. So let's see if we can simplify here. Resource ID is important, URL. In my table now, I have collected some data. I have the resource ID for the application, and I also have the URL if I want to go directly to that environment. This means that my agent now, with the inventory, is supposed to be able to fetch some data. Let's just try to see if we can write, excuse me, inventory. Because it's supposed to detect intention of the user. I'm not following a strict path here where you have to do a scan in order to use the inventory agent. And as you can see here, I just said inventory. And it makes it possible to see in the activity map that we're using the inventory agent and not the other agent, the discovery agent anymore. I can also see what kind of tools it's been using here. And for this scenario, I've asked it to list up the environment and the different elements and have a link so that I can go and actually choose if I want to delete this, because all of these have orphaned owners, or they are orphaned because the owners are not in the system anymore. So we can try to say that app SLV. I'm testing it out also using, it was not found in the governance assistant, but then I can open the application. Let's see if we can go into the direct environment. While that is loading, the idea is that you're going to be prompted with how you can go and actually delete it. So working with these agents will then go from one phase to another and to the last one. But you won't, as in my case, I don't need to have a process being run dependent on another one. Let's have a look at the inventory agent while we're working on this. And let's make this smaller. So I have a component name, environment ID, state, and URL. If there's a state, it's related to a flow, and the URL of the application itself. And if there are no options to do anything, you just have to do a scan first. So if I then go into my table of elements here, and I would then go and delete these items, this agent will then hopefully say that I need to do a scan because it can't find anything in the table today. And I can see that it didn't find anything. So would you like to do a scan? Working with this setup has given me options to be very specific, and I can see that it's being very, very quick when it comes to changing topics not topics, but changing the different tasks to the different relevant agents. And I can also see that it's also working very nicely together. So with the deletion of items, it understands when I want to do deletion and not just check the inventory. I am going to pop over and finish up here with last few bits. I hope it's showing the correct screen now, and you just have to tell me if it's not.
Yeah, just seeing building a governance agent and instructions. Like demo?
Excellent.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay. So we are moving now into the last part of this presentation, and I just want to make sure that you have heard me. I've mentioned it so many times, but I feel like instead of building one general agent, going into sub-agent or connected agent will make it better performing for every task because it's a specialist. And then we have the working of should you use the connected or should you use the child kind of approach. And I think that another question to add to this is the aspect of, do you really have to? Because if you have a very simple agent that do not have a lot of tools and they don't have to do anything autonomous, maybe it's better to just use one knowledge source and the overall instructions, because it can add complexity rather than making it simpler. So being mindful of how you choose your architecture will be very important going forward, and try not to fit something into a frame or a pattern that is not necessary. And you've all seen that I did not use any variables. I did not show any topics. I just had very, very specific instructions. So highlighting the fact that these instructions, the descriptions of the different agents and how they're going to be triggered or when they're going to be triggered, but not how they're going to work, is so important. So go in and create some good instructions going forward. Also, when it comes to the governance side of things, make sure that you're building agents that are simpler to govern. Maybe not easy because it's not anyway, but making sure that your agent is doing what it should and having control of the flows and the different agents within one agent can be difficult for an admin to see. So if you're just one developer, it's simpler with the governance. If it's going to be used in a broader spectrum, consider if it's better to have connected agents as well, because you can see all of that in your inventory. And maybe this is something that is coming up because, you know, all of you that build is coming up in June, which means that it's going to be some changes coming forward. And with that, I just wanted to highlight that there are some very good resources out there. And I think that the cool concept here with the Russian doll pattern is very interesting, in which it's making a very visual picture. It's easy to understand that you have an agent within agent, so it's inception. I also would recommend people to not only use these different resources, but also go check Agent Academy. And it's so much information in there on how to do these different patterns. So I hope that you learned something and that you had an interesting time. I want to say thank you, everyone, for attending, and thank you to Sean for being here. Appreciate that.
No problem. Thank you, Katrin, for a great presentation demo. So we'll now get into the questions and answers part. Should you feel to ask a question, please put in the chat box now. So the first question is, if the child agents are not prioritized, how will that affect the performance of the orchestrator agent?
If they're not prioritized in a way that you've set a lower prioritization on the agent, I assume is the question, then you will go through and check if the other agents with a higher priority can be run first. But the performance part is basically going to be improved anyway if you have been able to match the intent of the user with the description of what kind of agent should be used when. And I think just mentioning again with the different ways of calling upon the agent, the performance part is so much better. But if you want to have a very time sensitive approach, having just a flow in a topic is also possible. But it also then comes with the performance issue or a maintenance issue where you have to build a lot of it manually. So it's weighing up. Performance for the end user, I see, is working very nicely with the child agents today. I don't have any problems doing like I've shown you today with the governance agent, waiting for a couple of minutes to do the complete process from having a scan to deletion. And I hope that makes a little bit of sense. But I've seen that some people can struggle with the performance if they have very many tools within the separate agents as well. So that can be something for consideration.
Perfect. The next question is, are the child agents and connected agents treated equally, and prioritization can be set on top of both?
I'm not sure with the prioritization of a connected agent, and that is because I haven't really tried to use that approach with prioritization there. I've seen that using a connected agent can sometimes be problematic when it comes to being time sensitive, because it's like connecting to another separate system in a way that it's like an API call. It can take a bit longer because it's not within the scope of the agent itself, it's outside. And another thing with the connected agent is like if you are in control of that agent, it's fine, you can go and then debug and see how the run was. But if you're not in control, you can't go into seeing what has happened in that agent itself. I feel it's harder to work on when it comes to debugging the performance, because it's not like you can go and check the schema of it.
Perfect. And the next question is, what does a good approval and governance process look like before publishing updates to production?
So for me, it's making sure that the verification is set for the user. So before you do any kind of crude operation, like create, read, update, or delete, you have to make sure that the user is understanding what you're doing, and that you have set understanding on the technical aspect. So that means that if you are a global administrator, meaning you have permissions to do things in your environment, you will be able to delete stuff. And if you don't have that, you are not able in any way. But then you can set up what you are mentioning now with approvals, so you can send it for checks. The same would be using the flow, because this inspiration that I had for this governance agent was the Center of Excellence kit. And you can go ahead and look at these flows where you will see and you can catch Power Automate flows that have been orphaned or stale for some time, let's say 6 months. And you can send out an approval data card, for instance, to the owning user or to their manager. And then that will work as an approval to actually go ahead and delete that flow or element itself. So for me, being clear that this is actually true, that the orphan elements are actually orphaned, I usually go and check them. I go and see if they have been used and when it was last published. And then I can send it for approval or delete it myself when I've done a mapping. And especially for bigger organizations where I'm working now, it is a very tedious task to go through all of the elements in the environment.
Perfect. That looks like all the questions. So on behalf of the ESPC community, we'd like to extend a big thank you to you again, Katrin, for
Thank
taking the
you.
time out today, Car's webinar. Really appreciate it. So that's the end of today's webinar. You can find this webinar and more at sharepointeurope.com/resource center. Thanks all for joining us today. I hope you join us again soon. Take care.
Thank you.